Welcome to Black Men Folktales. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also like and share. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, as this means the whole world to us. Billionaire Mom pretends to be a poor cleaner to find wife for her son. The town of Azenwa was a place where stories traveled faster than the wind, and among the most popular of those stories was a legend of Mama Chi. People spoke her name with a mixture of admiration, envy, and awe. Some called her a miracle, a widow who had taken the reins of her late husband's empire, and not only preserved it, but multiplied it tenfold. Others whispered about her shrewdness, about how no business deal ever slipped through her fingers, about how men twice her size and age bowed to her intelligence. Mama Chi was not merely rich. She was a symbol of what a determined woman could achieve in a world where power was often locked in men's hands. She owned hotels that lit up the city skyline at night, malls that bustled with life from dawn till dusk, and estates so massive they felt like private kingdoms. Yet, for all her glory and wealth, her heart was troubled, for her only son, Chibuzo, the light of her eyes, had just returned from London, a man now, ready to settle down and take over the empire, but still vulnerable to the cruel choices of love. Mama Chi knew from bitter experience that riches attracted not only friends, but vultures. Many young women in town had already begun parading themselves, hoping to catch Chibuzo's eye. Their smiles were wide, their compliments sweet, but Mama Chi's sharp gaze pierced beyond appearances. She saw greed in their eyes, calculation in their steps, and ambition in their every word. To them, Chibuzo was not a man but a ticket, a golden pass into a world of comfort and endless luxury. The thought of her son falling for a woman who loved his wealth but despised his heart chilled her to the bone. She had fought battles in boardrooms, stood her ground in courts, and defended her late husband's legacy with everything she had. Was she now to hand it over to a careless woman, simply because her son was blinded by beauty and charm? No, not Mama Chi. She would not allow that. She had guarded the empire like a lioness all these years, and she would continue to guard it until she was certain her son was safe in the hands of the right woman. That night, as the mansion glittered in quiet elegance under the golden glow of chandeliers, Mama Chi and her son sat across from each other in the grand dining room. The long table stretched between them, adorned with polished silverware, but the weight of their conversation filled the space more heavily than the silence of the evening. Chibuzo, tall and broad-shouldered, carried himself with the quiet dignity of a man shaped by years abroad. He had inherited his late father's sharp features, but carried his mother's fire in his eyes. "Mama," he said, his voice steady but curious, "I know you want the best for me, but what more can I do? I cannot read minds. Any woman I bring, you will see flaws because no one is perfect. What if I make a mistake in choosing?" Mama Chi leaned back, folding her hands with deliberate patience. She had expected this question, and her answer had already taken root in her heart. "My son," she began softly, her voice carrying the weight of wisdom and experience. "Marriage is not about beauty, nor about words. A woman can smile sweetly and yet harbor poison in her heart. She can dress richly and yet be poverty to your soul. I will not sit back and watch you walk into a fire disguised as paradise. If you trust me, then trust the plan I have." Chibuzo's brows furrowed as he studied her, and she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Any woman you bring into this house will meet me. Not as Mama Chi the billionaire, not as the woman whose name makes men tremble in business circles, but as a poor cleaner, an ordinary woman serving in this house. I will wear rags, not lace. I will carry trays, not handbags. I will sweep the floor and serve food, and I will watch." She paused, letting her words sink deep into her son's mind. "Because, my son, how a woman treats those she believes are beneath her reveals her truest nature. If she mocks, if she insults, if she despises the poor, then she despises the values that hold families together. But if she honors, if she respects, if she shows kindness where no one is watching, then she is worthy to be your wife." Chibuzo's lips parted in disbelief, and for a moment, silence sat between them again. Then slowly, a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Mama, you are full of surprises. I see now why people fear you in business. Even love, you turn into a test of strategy." She laughed softly, though her heart remained heavy. It was not a game to her, it was life itself. And so the plan was sealed that very night. From that evening onward, Mama Chi transformed herself in secret. In the morning, she was still the powerful billionaire, meeting with investors, signing contracts, attending board meetings in her flowing lace attire and glittering diamonds. But in the evenings, when the mansion grew quiet, she would disappear into her chambers and reemerge in a worn-out wrapper, her hair tied with an old scarf, her feet in simple rubber slippers. She practiced moving like a servant, lowering her eyes, hunching her shoulders, and softening her voice to sound like a humble cleaner. Even the household staff were instructed to treat her as one of them whenever suitors arrived, though only a trusted few knew the truth. The plan was dangerous, but Mama Chi believed it was the only way. The very thought of parading her wealth in front of prospective wives sickened her. It would only attract pretenders. No, this time the heart would be tested, not the eyes. Chibuzo watched all this with a mixture of amusement and respect. He adored his mother, but he also knew her seriousness. Once she set her mind on something, nothing could move her. And so, the mansion waited, silent but ready, like a stage prepared for a play. It would not be long before the first test began. Chibuzo had already begun receiving calls from friends and acquaintances, women eager to welcome him back to Nigeria after years abroad. Some offered dinner, some offered parties, some pretended they were simply checking up on him. But Mama Chi knew better. The first guest was selected within days. Anyanai, a daughter of a wealthy businessman who was already eyeing a merger with Mama Chi's empire. She was glamorous, proud, and carried herself with the entitlement of one born into privilege. Mama Chi, in her cleaner's disguise, was ready that night. As the mansion prepared to welcome its guest, Mama Chi stood in front of her mirror, looking at her reflection not as a powerful matriarch she truly was, but as an old, ordinary cleaner, invisible and dismissed. She whispered to herself, "Let the games begin." And with that, the test commenced. The evening Anyanai arrived, the mansion seemed to hold its breath. She came in a sleek black SUV, stepping out in a glittering gown that sparkled under the floodlights, like a queen descending upon her kingdom. Anyanai was everything society adored, tall, slim, polished, and draped in designer brands that screamed of wealth and sophistication. She carried herself with a kind of arrogance that disguised itself as confidence, smiling only when she felt it necessary, and casting judgmental glances at everything else. Chibuzo received her warmly, his polite smile masking the watchful silence he had learned from his mother. But Mama Chi, dressed as a mansion's cleaner in her faded wrapper and old slippers, observed her keenly from the corner. Anyanai barely glanced her way, as though acknowledging her would be beneath her. Dinner was laid in the grand dining room, the chandeliers glowing like captured stars above their heads. Mama Chi shuffled in quietly with the trays of food, keeping her head bowed. As she placed a dish in front of Anyanai, the young woman wrinkled her nose and leaned back slightly, as though the mere proximity of the poor woman's wrapper might soil her gown. "Chibuzo," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Must this old woman be here while we eat? Honestly, it feels rather unsettling. In my father's house, the servants know their place. They stay out of sight." Chibuzo's eyes flicked to his mother, who remained silent, her face composed though her heart thundered with fury. The test had barely begun, and Anyanai's true colors were already on display. As the evening wore on, Anyanai's behavior grew more unbearable. She spoke endlessly about her father's business empire, about the international schools she had attended, and about the trips abroad she took just for shopping. When Mama Chi, in her humble disguise, accidentally dropped a spoon, the sound clattering on the marble floor, Anyanai flinched dramatically, her face twisting in exaggerated disgust. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she exclaimed, glaring at the cleaner. "Can't you at least be careful? This is a mansion, not some village hut where things fall all the time. Really, Chibuzo, you need to train your staff better. Imagine embarrassing us in front of guests." Chibuzo's jaw tightened, but he remained calm, glancing only once at his mother, who bent low to pick up the spoon. Inside, Mama Chi's heart was a battlefield. She had dealt with proud business rivals, corrupt officials, and arrogant billionaires, but there was something about Anyanai's disdain for the poor that pierced her deeply. It was not merely arrogance. It was cruelty disguised as sophistication. Anyanai continued talking, oblivious to the silence around her, and even hinted, with a sly smile, that if she and Chibuzo married, she would rearrange certain things in the house, including getting rid of staff that didn't meet her standards. The cleaner she mocked was a woman who held the power to decide her fate, yet Anyanai had no idea. By the time dinner ended, Mama Chi had seen enough. She excused herself quietly, still play her role, while Anyanai gushed about how much she had enjoyed the evening and how she fit so well into the family's world. When Anyanai finally left, her perfume still lingering in the air, Chibuzo sat in silence for a long time before speaking. His voice was low but firm. "Mama, you were right. Pride blinds the heart. If she cannot respect someone she believes is beneath her, how will she ever respect me when challenges come?" Mama Chi's eyes softened with sorrow, but also with resolve. My son, you must understand that a proud woman destroys not only herself, but also those around her. A woman who mocks the poor can never honor a husband. Chibuzzo nodded, and together they let Onion Eye's chapter close. Yet, deep inside, Mama Chi knew the test had only just begun. Onion Eye was only the first of many masks they would uncover. The second guest was Ifeoma, a woman whose reputation in the town was one of grace and humility. When she arrived at the mansion, her appearance was modest compared to Onion Eye's flamboyance. She wore a simple yet elegant gown, carried herself with calm dignity, and greeted the staff with polite smiles. To the unsuspecting eye, she seemed like a refreshing change, and Chibuzzo himself felt a flicker of relief as he welcomed her. When Mama Chi, disguised once more as the poor cleaner, entered with a tray of drinks, Ifeoma smiled warmly and said, "Thank you, Mama. God bless you." Mama Chi studied her closely, wondering if this warmth was real or an act. The evening began well, with Ifeoma complimenting the house modestly and engaging Chibuzzo in gentle conversation. Unlike Onion Eye, she did not boast of wealth or achievements, nor did she openly insult the cleaner. At first glance, she seemed perfect, but Mama Chi knew too well that appearances were the most dangerous masks. It happened when Chibuzzo excused himself briefly to take a phone call. The room fell silent, leaving Ifeoma alone with Mama Chi. The warmth on her face evaporated instantly, like a candle blown out by the wind. She turned to the cleaner, her eyes sharp and cruel. "Old woman," she hissed, "wipe this table properly. Do you expect me to sit here with crumbs? Look at you, wrinkled, dirty, and clumsy. Is this how you disgrace this family?" Mama Chi said nothing, only bowed her head, her heart tightening with grief. Ifeoma leaned back, smirking. A family this rich, yet they keep such a useless woman around? If I marry Chibuzzo, the first thing I'll do is fire you. I can't stand incompetence. She waved her hand dismissively, as though swatting away a fly. The venom in her voice was a far cry from the sweet tone she had used moments earlier. Mama Chi's silence was her shield, but inside she was already writing Ifeoma's fate. When Chibuzzo returned, Ifeoma's smile returned as well, warm and angelic. She even turned to Mama Chi and said in a syrupy voice, "Mama, you're doing so well. May God reward you." The contrast was so sharp that Chibuzzo felt a strange unease, though he did not yet know what had transpired. By the end of the night, Ifeoma had carefully built her image as the humble, well-mannered woman any mother-in-law would desire. But when she left, Mama Chi revealed the truth to her son. Her voice was low, steady, and filled with disappointment as she recounted every word Ifeoma had spoken in his absence. Chibuzzo's eyes widened with shock, his chest tightening with anger. "So she was pretending all along," he murmured. "Mama, how many more like this? How many masks must we pull off before we find someone real?" Mama Chi placed her hand on his, her eyes glistening. "That is why we test, my son. Better 1,000 disappointments than one mistake that ruins your life." Chibuzzo nodded slowly, his respect for his mother deepening, even as his hope dimmed a little more. Ifeoma, the perfect pretender, was cast aside, her false humility exposed by the very woman she had despised. Amaka arrived like a vision. She was stunning, the kind of beauty that could stop conversations and turn heads in every room. Her presence filled the mansion instantly, her laughter like music, her charm effortless. Chibuzzo welcomed her warmly, though he was careful not to be blinded by her glamour. Mama Chi, wrapped once again in her cleaner's disguise, observed quietly from the shadows. When she entered the dining room with water, Amaka barely glanced at her before snapping her fingers impatiently. "Cleaner, bring me a glass of water." Quickly, Mama Chi obeyed silently, placing the glass in front of her. Amaka took a sip, then grimaced. "This is tap water, isn't it? Don't you people serve bottled? Honestly, this is ridiculous." She pushed the glass aside with disdain. Chibuzzo frowned slightly, but said nothing yet. Amaka continued to chat, speaking about her travels, her modeling gigs, and her dreams of living in palaces like this. But every word she spoke dripped with entitlement, and every glance she cast at the cleaner carried disdain. The breaking point came when Mama Chi, intentionally testing her further, brought another tray of food, but allowed her hands to tremble slightly, spilling a bit of soup on the table. Amaka's reaction was swift and merciless. "Are you blind?" she snapped, pushing Mama Chi away roughly. "Do you know how much this dress costs? If you had stained it, you wouldn't be able to pay for even the thread. Useless woman." Her voice was sharp, cutting through the room like a whip. Chibuzo's jaw clenched, his fist tightening at his side. For the first time he spoke, his voice low and controlled. Amaka, that was uncalled for. But Amaka only laughed lightly, waving her hand as though dismissing the issue. Oh, come on, darling. You can't let servants get away with such clumsiness. If they're not corrected, they'll never improve. She leaned back in her chair, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind Chibuzo's eyes. Mama Chi remained silent, her head bowed, but her mind was screaming. It was not the insult to herself that hurt. It was a realization that such cruelty could one day be directed at her son if he ever displeased Amaka. By the end of the evening, Mama Chi knew without a doubt that Amaka's beauty was a mask hiding a heart of stone. When the girl finally left, still smiling as though nothing had happened, the silence in the mansion was heavy. Chibuzo turned to his mother, his voice shaking with restrained anger. Mama, I cannot believe she pushed you. I cannot believe she dared insult you in this house. Mama Chi placed a calming hand on his shoulder. Do not let anger cloud you, my son. It is better we see her true nature now than after a wedding. A cruel heart cannot be changed by rings or vows. Such a woman would treat the weak with contempt and the powerful with flattery. That is poison. Chibuzo nodded slowly, though his chest still burned with anger. Then she is not the one, he said firmly. And with that, Amaka's chapter was closed, leaving only the bitter memory of beauty corrupted by cruelty. The fourth guest, Neka, arrived on a sunny afternoon, her laughter echoing even before she stepped into the mansion. Unlike Onion Eye's icy pride, Ifeoma's pretended humility, or Amaka's cruel beauty, Neka carried herself with unrestrained energy. She was full-figured, bold, and unapologetically loud. Her eyes, however, betrayed her, darting from one object in the mansion to another, her pupils widening at the sight of chandeliers, marble floors, and antique art pieces that lined the hallways. From the very moment she walked in, she was less interested in Chibuzo himself and more fascinated by the symbols of wealth that surrounded him. Oh my God, she exclaimed, running her hands along the mahogany dining table. Do you know how much this would sell in Dubai? Chibuzo, your family really knows how to live. This chandelier, original crystal, I can tell, must cost millions. You people live like kings. Chibuzo smiled politely, but Mama Chi, disguised again as a humble cleaner, observed silently from her corner. She had met enough greedy men in business to recognize greed in a woman. It wasn't the admiration of beauty that worried her. It was a hunger in Neka's voice, a hunger that went beyond appreciation and leaned dangerously into obsession. The evening had barely begun, yet Mama Chi felt the storm of greed brewing. During dinner, Neka's fixation became clearer. She constantly interrupted Chibuzo's attempts at meaningful conversation, steering every topic back to material things. How many cars do you own? She asked, her eyes shining. Do you people travel often? I mean, surely you must go first class or private jet, right? Tell me, do you own houses abroad? London? America? Dubai? She laughed loudly at her own questions, though her eyes remained sharp, hungry for answers. When Mama Chi appeared to serve water, her wrapper tied, simply as always, Neka frowned. Cleaner, bring me bottled water, not this tap nonsense. And make sure it's imported, not local brands. I don't drink just anything. Mama Chi obeyed silently, her heart sinking with every word. To test her further, Mama Chi intentionally delayed the water, and Neka clicked her tongue in irritation. Honestly, Chibuzo, with all your money, why keep such slow, useless staff? When I marry into this family, I'll hire proper people who know how to serve. This one is embarrassing. She did not know she was insulting the very woman whose blessing she sought. Her words struck Chibuzo like stones, and though he tried to hide it, disappointment carved lines into his face. Neka, oblivious, leaned close to him and whispered, You know, darling, I hope your mother's was already in your name. It would be such a shame if outsiders tried to take your inheritance. The venom behind her smile was unmistakable. Paragraph 3 is almost equal to 500+ words. By the end of the night, Neka had exhausted everyone with her laughter, her endless questions, and her shameless greed. When she finally left, still marveling at the cars parked in the driveway, silence cloaked the mansion. Chibuzo sat heavily, his face dark with anger and disappointment. Mama, he said slowly, if this is what wealth attracts, then perhaps I don't want marriage at all. These women don't see me, they see gold. They see cars, houses, diamonds. To them, I am not a man but a prize to be won. Mama Chi placed her hands on his, her voice soft but firm. Do not despair, my son. Every mask must fall before the right face is revealed. We have seen pride, pretense, cruelty, and now greed. These are poisons that destroy homes. But I know God will not let us in this journey without finding truth. The right woman exists, one whose heart is greater than her hunger for wealth. She spoke with such conviction that Chibuzo felt a flicker of hope return. The test was wearing him down, but his mother's faith was unshakable. Mama Chi had not built empires by giving up easily, and she would not allow her son's destiny to be poisoned by greed. It was on a quiet evening that Adiz came. Unlike the others, she did not arrive in flashy cars or in gowns dripping with jewels. She wore a simple Ankara dress, modest and bright, and walked with calm grace that seemed to light the air around her. Chibuzo greeted her warmly, and for the first time in weeks his smile was genuine. Mama Chi, dressed in her cleaner's wrapper, shuffled into the dining room with a tray. Adiz turned instantly, her face brightening with kindness. "Good evening, Mama," she said warmly. "Please, don't trouble yourself. Let me help you with that tray." Mama Chi paused, startled by the unexpected gentleness. No girl before had even acknowledged her presence with such warmth. "No, my daughter, it's my duty," Mama Chi murmured, playing her role. But Adiz insisted, holding the tray steady as though she valued the cleaner's effort. Throughout dinner, Adiz's attention was not consumed by the mansion's grandeur. She complimented the meal, laughed softly at Chibuzo's stories, and occasionally turned to ask the cleaner if she had eaten. It was a question that froze Mama Chi's heart, for no one before had cared enough to ask. In that moment, Mama Chi saw a glimmer of hope she had been waiting for. Midway through the evening, Mama Chi tested her further. Carrying a second tray, she stumbled intentionally, sending plates crashing to the floor. The room fell silent, but before Mama Chi could even bend down, Adiz was already at her side. "Oh no, Mama, are you hurt? Please, sit down, let me handle this," she said with genuine concern. She knelt gracefully, picking up the broken pieces carefully to avoid cuts, while Chibuzo looked on in awe. "You shouldn't be doing this alone," Adiz continued, her voice tender. "Everyone deserves help. Everyone deserves kindness." She then took Mama Chi's hands gently and led her to sit at the table. "Please, eat with us. You've been working all evening. You must be tired." Mama Chi's heart swelled, tears pricking her eyes. Never had any of the other girls thought of her as a human being worthy of care. They saw only a poor cleaner. Adiz saw a mother, a person deserving respect. The silence in the room was filled with emotion, though Adiz herself did not know the weight of her actions. She was simply being herself. As the evening continued, Adiz's sincerity only deepened. She asked Chibuzo about his dreams, not his wealth. She spoke of family, of how love meant serving each other, of how humility was the root of peace. When asked what she desired in life, she simply smiled and said, "A home full of love, not riches that choke the heart." Mama Chi could no longer hold back the tide of emotions that surged within her. She excused herself quietly, retreating to her chambers, where she wept silently, not tears of sorrow but of relief. The test had been long, painful, and filled with disappointment, but here at last was a girl whose heart was pure. That night, when Adiz left, Chibuzo turned to his mother, his eyes shining with hope. "Mama," he whispered, "I think we've found her." Mama Chi nodded slowly, her lips trembling. "Yes, my son, we have found light after darkness. But she must know the truth. Tomorrow, her heart will be rewarded." The next morning, Adiz was invited once more to the mansion. She arrived early, carrying a small basket of fruits as a gift. Her simplicity remained unchanged. No flashy gowns, no greedy eyes. She expected to see the cleaner again, but instead, the mansion felt different, charged with anticipation. As she sat in the living room, the doors opened and Mama Chi entered. But this time, she was not the weary cleaner in rags. She was the billionaire queen of Zenwa, draped in regal lace, diamonds sparkling at her throat, her head high and commanding. Adiz gasped, her heart racing. She rose quickly to her feet, eyes wide in disbelief. "And Mama, it was you," she stammered, trembling. Mama Chi's smile was gentle, her eyes moist. "Yes, my daughter. It was me all along. The cleaner you helped, the woman you treated with love and respect. That was I. I needed to see her heart without the mask of riches." Adiz's hands flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. She looked down in shock, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the revelation. Mama Chi stepped closer, her voice rich with emotion. My dear, you do not know what you have done for me. I tested many before you. I watched pride, pretense, cruelty, and greed destroy women who could have stood here. They failed, not because they lacked beauty or wealth, but because they lacked heart. But you, Adiz, you saw a poor old woman and treated her as though she were your mother. You lifted me when I fell. You fed me when I was weary. You honored me when you thought no one was watching. That, my daughter, is the mark of a true wife. Adiz's tears flowed freely now, her knees weakening as she fell to ground in humility. Mama, I did not know. I only did what my heart told me was right. Forgive me if I ever fell short. Mama Chi bent quickly, lifting her up with trembling hands. No, my child, you did not fall short. You rose above every test. You were the answer I prayed for. Behind them, Chibuzo stepped forward, his eyes shining with joy. He took Adiz's hands gently. Now you know why I love you. Not for wealth, not for beauty, but for this, your heart. The mansion, once a stage for deceit and disappointment, now bloomed with joy. Preparations for the wedding began almost immediately, and news of Mama Chi's secret test spread across Zenwa like wildfire. People spoke of the billionaire widow who disguised herself as a poor cleaner to test the hearts of her son's suitors. Some laughed, some marveled, but all agreed it was a tale that would outlive generations. On the day of the engagement, the mansion was filled with laughter, music, and blessings. Mama Chi stood tall, her heart swelling with pride as she watched her son and Adiz exchange vows of love and commitment. For the first time since her husband's death, Mama Chi felt a peace so deep it silenced every fear. She had not only guarded her son, but had found him a wife whose humility would preserve the legacy they had built. As drums beat and dancers filled the courtyard, Mama Chi whispered to herself, "The test is over. The right one has come." And thus ended the journey. A story not of riches or power, but of a mother's wisdom, a son's obedience, and a woman's kindness that shone brighter than gold. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.